In this video, we will talk about rivalry between Hells Angels and Mongols. Let's start. Many World War II veterans returned home in hardship. Over the previous 10 years, they had saw and experienced a great deal. Furthermore, a large number of individuals returned home alone, lacking a sense of companionship or family. They just sit by themselves and reflect on all they had gone through. So, groups of veterans banded together and founded motorcycle clubs in an attempt to simultaneously alleviate these two issues. There is no way to verify this, although it's widely believed that one club arrived first. And it brings us to California's Bloomington. Bloomington, which is situated to the west of San Bernardino, was and perhaps still is a tiny, impoverished community. This is also the location where a small group of motorcycle enthusiasts came together to form PBB, also referred to as the Bloomington Pissed Off Bastards. The intention was to be ferocious, a little boisterous, and to utilize this as a way to break free from social constraints. And a few more motorcycle clubs also came into existence after them. Though many would argue that the lads were just riding about, they were undoubtedly rebellious. Peace. As a result, nobody has had any serious issues with them as of yet. And thus we come to July 3, 1947. A yearly motorcycle race was held in the Northern California city of Hollister on July 3rd and 4th beginning in 1930. Countless individuals would travel from all over the West Coast to witness and display their motorcycles. There were just 4,500 people living in Hollister at the time, and the town employed 7 police officers. This implied that 7 individuals were on duty during the whole event. However, because everything was constantly calm at the time, this wasn't a concern. But 1947 would see the arrival of a new character in Hollister. All of the motorcycle groups get together in the neighborhood taverns and eateries following the event. And after a time, everyone started to bump into each other for some reason. According to mythology, the Market Street Commandos of San Francisco and PBB, the traditional rivalry between NorCal and SoCal, got into a fight as early as 1947. Regretfully, this established the tone for the remainder of the evening. Chaos broke out, and people continued acting recklessly into the early hours of July 5th. That was 2 days in a row of insanity, with just 7 cops to break it up. The entire incident made national news, and they utterly destroyed the town of Hollister. Despite the absurdity of the scenario, the press greatly inflated and terrified citizens worldwide. This was the first time motorcycle clubs were introduced to the general public. Their style of life was viewed from the beginning only as negative. Even worse, the same scenario happened in Riverside 2 months later on Labor Day, this time involving PBB and a nearby rival team known as the Outlaws. Many were so incensed about motorcycle clubs after the Riverside incident that the Riverside sheriff accused them of being rebellious. The American Motorcycle Association retorted that 99% of its members are decent individuals. Everyone chuckled at the sentence, including the motorcyclists themselves. This is when they began referring to themselves as the 1% heirs in order to stand in for the 1% of people that aren't nice people. And because the clubs descended into total lawlessness, this identity led to a great deal of problems. It came to the point that several members, including a senior PBB leader, were tired of it. That person would be Otto Friedli. Otto left the club and formed his own because he was unhappy with the way PBB was going. Otto got up with other buddies on March 17, 1948, to start their own motorcycle club. When they sat together to choose a name, Arvin Olsen, a guy, offered the first option, the Hells Angels. Everyone was dubious at first, but after hearing about the beginnings, they all gave in. Arvid's squadron earned the moniker Hells Angels during their time in China, and he intended to replicate it in the United States. The men then went out and recruited some members using these identities. Their first headquarters were located in Fontana, California, which is located just west of San Bernardino. In the ensuing 10 years, the Hells Angels began to proliferate throughout the state of California. This brings us to 1953. The year the Angels started moving northward was this one. Rocky Graves, a member from San Bernardino, was the catalyst. He relocated to San Francisco at the beginning of 1953 and founded the Frisco Hells Angels. He recruited in the lower-class neighborhoods of the city, such Crocker Amazon and the Excelsior, in order to do this. 13 full-time members had been hired before the end of the year. And over the bridge, the same thing would happen a few years later. And that brings us to Sonny Barger. Although Sonny was born in Modesto, his mother abandoned the family when he was 4 years old, and his father struggled with his own issues. He so moved to live with his grandma in Oakland when he was a child. He had a difficult life there and, at the age of 15, left school. To cut a long tale short, he felt he needed some kind of structure because his adolescent years had been crazy. He so made the decision to form the Oakland Hells Angels in 1957. Initially, Sonny was disliked by many of the Southern California chapters due to his fiery nature and tendency to cause trouble. There are rumors that he got into arguments with several Southern California members at the early Angels meetings. But as a result, Otto Friedli, the founder, began to warm to him. He was immediately struck by Sonny's leadership potential and admired his no-nonsense demeanor. Otto took on a case the next year, leading him to name Sonny Barger the Hells Angels' Supreme Commander. This implied that he now had the authority to command everyone who disapproved of him. This might not have been a good thing, though, because the following 10 years were terrible. They had evolved from a boisterous motorcycle club to something far deeper subterranean by 1965. It all began when Sonny Barger discovered a novel means of becoming wealthy. I won't reveal what it was, but you can probably guess what it was like given the 1960s. Consequently, the Angels were moving items for Sonny Barger and were no longer just having fun. He did not attempt to keep his surgery under wraps, unlike what one might assume. A leather vest with the Hells Angels emblem in the center was worn by each member. California is below the club name, while the club name is above. We call this a bottom rocker. Despite its absurdity, it was significant to have California on the bottom rocker. They took care to maintain its exclusivity as the only motorcycle club with it. Nobody would be stupid enough to try to put it on theirs at that time. Or perhaps not. And with that, we find ourselves back in Southern California. A brand new motorcycle club was founded in 1969 in Montebello, a tiny community near to East Los Angeles. The Mongols Motorcycle Club takes their name from the legendary Genghis Khan's Mongol dynasty. This is due to the fact that their original goal was to conquer California. At first, their vest only featured their emblem with Mongols above it. It had no bottom rocker, and, if you get what I mean, their main function was to move Jesse Pinkman. Additionally, they started engaging in a variety of clandestine activities. From the beginning, the Mongols were definitely not someone to fool with. All of this, however, was okay with the Angels. Respectfully, we stay in our lane and you stay in yours. But it would all change in 1977, so allow me to provide some background. Chester Green, a Frisco Angel, got into a fight with his fellow members in 1976. He became so incensed that he made the decision to leave the group and relocate to Los Angeles. There, he allied himself with the Mongols and revealed to them the true nature of the feeble and pitiful Angels. As a result, the Mongols were encouraged to sample them whenever they came across them. California's Anaheim, April 1977. The Mongols first see the Angels while attending a trading meet. They all freeze at once. The Angels understand they are outnumbered by at least 30 as the Mongols encircle them. They kind of want to run at this point since it's the wise thing to do. But they have to accept what's coming in order to follow the rules and maintain the Angels' image. As soon as one of the Angels approaches the lead Mongol and BP, mayhem breaks out. The Mongols prevailed, of course, but the Angels earned praise for their courage. However, the Mongols wanted to make a statement since, in a sense, they were the ones who started it. Thus, the commander of the Mongols informs the Angels that a major surprise is on the way. This is what it is. The Mongols choose to adorn their vest with a California bottom rocker. The Angels made it apparent that this distinctive quality was exclusive to them. And that brings us to 5 p.m. on Labor Day, 1977. Riding up Highway 5 in their shiny new jackets is a group of Mongols. They're their route to a Labor Day cycling event where they want to debut their just-acquired bottom rocker. They're unaware, meanwhile, that two Angels are pursuing them on the I-5. The Angels elevated the rivalry to a level the Mongols never anticipated, which is why this episode astonished them. 3 days later, all because of a stitch on the back of a vest, the Mongols assemble at the graveyard to pay their final respects to Jingles and Redeard. Interestingly enough, there's also a San Diego Angels fan present. He quietly leaves a large arrangement of red and white flowers behind. Either the Mongols were too shocked to act, or they mistook it for an apology and a token of respect from the Angels. Sadly, the latter was untrue, and the Mongols were ridiculed by the Angels for allowing it to occur. The competition hasn't stopped since then. However, this isn't a regular occurrence because motorcycle clubs don't have fixed sites and are always on the move. Nonetheless, the West Coast has seen innumerable incidences, from within the buildings to the highways, dining establishments, and even gaming dens. Now let's go back to 2002. At this point, the rivalry reached its peak. It was falling at any time and any place. April 27, 2002. In the tiny Nevadan hamlet of Lawland, it's a sweltering Saturday. Every year, thousands of cyclists participate in the Lawland River Run. An annual motorcycle festival like this one attracts 50,000 attendees. This implies that all individuals, even Mongols and angels, are present. Christian Tate, a San Diego angel, doesn't want to spend the night after the event. Thus, he sets off on his own to return to San Diego. He travels down the excruciatingly dull I-40. This roadway is completely devoid of anything. In any case, he stops for gas in Ludlow, California while traveling on the interstate. He has no idea, though, that someone has been watching him the entire time. Therefore, the man pulls up to the petrol station. This is where things become tricky in the story. Everyone was shaken by the occurrence. It's likely that he wasn't found soon away because this happened in the middle of nowhere. Furthermore, who would have reported what had transpired to the other members in Lawland because he was alone himself? I'm not sure whether cell phones were around in 2002 either. The remainder of the night would be crazy either way. 2 a.m. The Angels learn from a local police officer that several Mongols are encircling some of the Angels inside Harris. The Angels then dash inside to assist them. This is the point that chaos ensues. Things went well out of hand with this. Thus, the Lawland police conducted weeks of investigation since they had nothing better to do. They were unable to determine if the activities at 2 a.m. were related in any way to the Christian Tate incident. However, 6 Mongols and 7 Angels ultimately fell. Frederick Donahue, an Angel, nevertheless, made the decision to flee. He was stopped in a tiny town 6 years later, and he is now going about his life. The major media covered this whole story extensively. Many people were unaware that there was a world of bikers, much less that incidents like this ever happened. And just when you thought there was no more crazy stuff to this tale, a huge incident would happen. One instance sticks out above the others after 5 more years of upheaval. September 2, 2008. Mark Guadato, aka Papa Francisco, is the head of the Angels chapter in San Francisco. Papa Frisco was out and about on this Tuesday night in the Mission District at 24th and Tree. He's enjoying himself and few beers with some pals. However, that's the moment when Christopher Ablett, a Mongol, enters the bar. Because of how serious everything was, the FBI wanted to wrap things up. The Black Rain operation. 110 arrests and 160 search warrants. They wanted the Mongols gone, from Ohio to Oregon to California. Although they continue to exist, Operation Black Rain undoubtedly had a negative impact on them. Not to add, if you guys want, I can go into great detail on their intense rivalry with the Southsiders in a whole other video. Conversely, the Angels have grown rapidly, with 467 chapters spread throughout 59 nations. But there are barely 3,000 to 5,000 members in spite of all these chapters. You might be curious as to why. It's because it's really hard to become an angel. Admission to the underworld is akin to that of Harvard. This is a result of the Angels' absurd demand. For instance, prior to applying, you must be good friends with an angel for 5 years. Next, all of the leaders vote to determine whether or not you are qualified to be an angel before you are allowed to enter. They urge you to be obedient and to recognize the sacrifices that come with being an angel. No matter what, you have to constantly stand behind your fellow brothers. According to current events, Sonny Barger, the previous commander of the Angels, passed away from old age a few months ago. In fact, his funeral was held in Stockton only a week ago. The sheriff of San Joaquin was forced to issue a warning regarding possible problems, but happily everything went well. For the funeral of Sonny Barger, the founder of the Hells Angels, thousands of motorcycle riders fired up their engines and drove into Stockton. It appears that the Angels have altered who they are. It appears that their primary priorities are their brothers and their shared passion of motorcycling. Personally, I can state that I have only ever had one encounter with the Angels. Years ago, I thought it was the best thing ever, and it was during a motorcycle festival in Reno. I obviously had no idea what was actually going on there. Perhaps you also didn't. I sincerely hope you found the video entertaining, and if so, please remember to subscribe and give a like. Tell me what you would want to see next as well.